You're listening to the Birds on Power Lines podcast. And in this podcast, we are going to continue our tradition of following through with Doctor Who. And we are going to be looking at the first 4 episodes of Doctor Who Series 15. And if you look online, there's a bit of a debate on whether we want to call it Doctor Who Season 2, 2025, because it's the second season that it's on Disney Plus, and
it's also the second season.
And it's also the second season with ncutigatwa as the Doctor. So, but we're gonna go with Series 15, right?
Yeah,
we're gonna go with Series 15. And if you are listening to us on an audio platform, please feel free to follow us through to our YouTube location at Birds on Power Lines Podcast, and you can see us. All right, so shall we start? So if you haven't listened to our podcast before, we sort of sit down and we don't really know what each other are going to say. We actually watch the episodes together, and then we think about it, and then we do our podcast, and we find out what we each thought. So sometimes it's hard not to say anything. Right?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll let you go first, but did you write down the
I did. Yes.
It's the robot revolution.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just right off the bat, like one of the actually this is kind of like almost one of the last things that happened in this episode, but it's the first thing I thought about, is I was wondering if the resemblance between Mundy Flynn and Belinda Chandra will be more significant later, because like the Doctor did mention at the end,
uncanny resemblance.
Yeah, very really similar, even DNA resemblance, genetical resemblance between the two. Even though they're
I think I put a comment about that. Yeah, so at some point,
even though they're thousands of years separated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because obviously we know in our world they're both played by Varadasethu, but
of course, they're the same person.
So that means
in reality,
they would be pretty similar, but I'm thinking maybe there may be significance to that later, perhaps, because he did note that is really unusual.
Yeah.
And then I was also thinking that in general just the entire show, because we haven't really watched it before it got picked up on Disney Plus, but in general, everything, all the CGI and all the sets, everything's just really, really stunning, and especially when they're on another planet, and I'm really impressed by because they're often on other planets, and there often is a certain moment in the episode that they look up and they look out, and that's of course pretty much entirely CGI, and this, especially in this episode, I noticed the cityscape is very, very stunning. It's amazing how they can do all that stuff, and
especially because it's on TV, right?
It's not even
like we're doing Star Wars
movie,
on a major film,
and especially thinking what Toy Story was 1990 something, right? Yeah, so based 30 years ago, that was a novel thing, and now we can do it looks believably realistic now, but it's just amazing that we can do that now. And
your writing is so small.
Yeah,
teeny tiny writing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and then so then I don't know if this is just a regular thing for the first episode of every Doctor Who season, but I felt like also with the last season 2, the writing in the first episode of every season, or the tone, the themes in each first episode of each new season that we've seen so far, it's only been 2, they've been a bit weird, it just feels the first episode to me feels a little disjointed from the rest of the season.
I'm gonna talk about that.
Okay. I know it's to introduce the new companion, and that's why I feel like in the 60th anniversary special, I didn't really get. It was a little odd, but it fit in line with the other the other 2 episodes. But that was, I feel because she wasn't a new companion technically, so we already knew her. But then I feel with Ruby and now with Belinda, I feel the first episode that's introducing them, the tone is just a little bit different and odder than the rest of the season. But that might have just been a me thing. But so it's something I noticed, and I'm kind of wondering about that. Maybe, I don't know if that's a common thing.
I'm gonna elaborate on that. But I tend to agree with you. Really zany. Yeah. More zany than the other ones, and I don't really know why they do that. Why? I don't know if this is just a Russell T Davies thing, because when I was young, and I've talked about this in past podcasts.
Yeah,
I had seen Doctor Who, and I always was scared. And it's interesting because I saw one of the guys who's actually doing the music now for some of the Doctor Who, and I don't know which one it was. When he was young, because he's about the same age as me, he did the same thing. He used to hide behind the couch every time it came on. And now he's doing the music himself. And it's just like when I was, so I would watch them, but, I was by myself in the family room watching it because I don't have siblings, and I would just sit there and I would change the channel.
I only ever saw...
That's concerning.
I only ever saw like one episode. And it was, I don't even know what season it was from. It was like one with like a whole bunch of mannequins, and like they were like in the eye, and like there's lightning. I don't even know I don't know which one that was. But I wasn't freaked out. Well, actually no, I was freaked out.
Little bits and pieces of many episodes.
I'm still scared of Department Store mannequins to this day because of that episode.
Was that when you were young and it came on? Could it have been on PBS?
It might have. I don't know. No, I think it might. Maybe.
I don't know. Like
I don't remember any ads. I think it might have been like
I don't know what it was. Anyways, when you were young, and I think I told you it used to scare me. So
it was a little freaky, but I wasn't like scared. I was just like a little bit freaked out.
But anyways, so that's my point. Like I don't know if it. I mean, Doctor Who is always a little odd, but I feel I agree with you that the last. Every time we've seen the first episode,
it doesn't really fit.
It's different. It's like bizarre.
It's like really, really weird, and not like in the normal really weird way. It's just like really, really odd.
And there's like so much going on. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to talk a bit more about that. But I agree.
Anyway, and then like the whole thing with and then another thing I wanted to mention. This is the thing that like I'm seeing right so far. Very, very common, especially in this season. Like it's a very common thing where, like, in this case with Sasha 55, they bring in a really, really good person, a genuinely likable character, and then they just kill them off.
Yeah, it's just like
they're gone.
It's like the red shirts on.
If there's a character
that was not lasting.
If there's a character that's like a good person and they're not the companion, they're dying.
Yeah.
And it happens every single time, and I'm just like, oh, jeez. That's so that's a repeated thing.
That's you for this,
no. I still have like two more things.
Okay, go ahead.
Then another thing. So I'm wondering if the time paradox that we're seeing now, and it's like the main thing of this season, I'm gonna guess, if that is connected with because they said there's a space rift. And
it's like they're being bounced off.
Yeah, it's like they're being bounced off of it. But there's also a space rift and a time dilation thing between Miss Belinda Chandra whatever one and Earth. So I'm wondering if that might if the first episode really does tie into the rest of the season,
it introduces that concept, right?
It does.
So that's what they're trying to
get
at.
So I wasn't entirely clear if the rift, the space rift, the time dilation, if that is linked to the reason they're bouncing off.
And they're always bouncing off of May 25th, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Now, is it May
25th?
I think it's
May 25th, yeah.
So I'm wondering, is that the day of the last
episode? It's not. That's the thing that's...
Oh, okay.
Because I was thinking it was.
I was thinking, I've got to check to see if it is.
When we were watching it,
but then I can't remember if that's the case or not. So
at least I don't think it is.
What is it? Are you sure? Like, I'm almost thinking that it is, and that's why you're going to find out on May 25th.
It should be, but I don't think it...
They're bouncing off of it, and they can't get back. It's like, I mean,
because they're coming out on Thursdays, right? That's like a Friday.
Yeah, I don't know. I am too busy. I didn't look.
Anyway,
I should have looked. We're doing this podcast.
Either way, no. I think it's like off by a week or so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyways,
anyway,
I don't know why they chose that day.
I'm not sure, but maybe it must be. I think we must be wrong.
We have to have a look. Yeah. But anyways, so by the next podcast we'll know.
We'll know. Yeah, and then also, and then we see later that. So Mrs. Flood, even though we saw her on Earth, now we clearly know there's something weird going on with her. We saw her on Earth. She's not destroyed. She's all over the place.
Yeah.
What is she So then this is really giving me very strong Sutex / Susan vibes from the last season.
But she was all through the last season too. But you just couldn't figure out if she was malevolent or.
Yeah, well, this case we kind of also.
Yeah, you kind of know.
I feel like
you don't know yet in this
episode. I feel like she is kind of rooting for the Doctor a bit.
What?
Yeah, because some of the things some of the things that she's saying right now.
I think she's complimentary, but she's definitely not.
I don't know.
Anyways,
I don't
you
know.
can't tell in this episode, but
either way,
definitely
yeah. So
by
then
episode 4.
I was thinking like, is she like another harbinger, like the toy maker, the maestro, all those other people, or
Well, she's definitely
is she
something
the
weird.
is she the harbinger? Is she like the big like
The
head
one that,
honcho?
you know, in the 60th anniversary
Yeah, he was
special,
like,
he
oh,
was
someone
like,
out there.
someone's out, more powerful than I am, and I'm scared of that person.
Yeah, is it her? I don't know. But yeah, so that was.
Yeah, I don't know, but I didn't think about that, but I
don't know, but yeah.
All right, so that's you.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, so let me see what else I had to say. Again, playing the iterations of the same character, met her descendant, but identical.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't know, even in the Doctor's world, I think that's weird. And I put zany in ways, but I'm growing to expect that of Russell T Davies. So again, like we were talking about, I don't know if it's a Russell T Davies thing, but I really love the polish. Polish.
Yeah.
And that to me is a total Russell T Davies flair thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's just odd. Just odd.
Everything is being
in a very British way, you know? and I know when I was like, you're much younger than me, but when I was young, we used to polish the floors. Oh, my mother had a polisher.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. My mother had a polisher, and we would polish the linoleum floors, and it was like a little polisher, and you know, and so that's why I can totally relate.
That is. Okay.
Yeah, my mom would come out with the polisher, and made everything nice and shiny.
Yeah, I was thinking more like a Roomba or something.
No, it's just polishing it, make it nice and shiny. Yep, that's what it's doing. And I think it's kind of neat that kind of like in Star Wars where they kind of like have little lovable droid.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're. Yeah. He's very cute. So out of the gate, I did not like the boyfriend. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, I didn't really care about him.
I didn't like him. Didn't like him. The way he's just like, oh, I know how girls can't do maths or whatever he said. I just didn't like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect that he would actually be the monster. I thought that you know, and then.
I mean, it makes sense.
So then I go, and then I said, yikes, Mrs. Flood is still there and still breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
So the fact that she can break the fourth wall,
that's freaky.
It tells you that she's powerful, right? Again, the Doctor gets very attached. I find that with a recurring theme with this Doctor. He gets very attached. The tears are flowing very quickly for Sasha 55. I was surprised because we just saw him on Earth, so I didn't realize that there was that period of time. You see, and that's the thing about these episodes is that there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And some of it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't mind zany.
It is. They did explain it though.
I still felt weird about it.
I got it. But,
yeah. So that's kind of like weird. So you learned later that it was like a 6-month period of time that he was there. So can't return to the date. Earth is clearly gone. You know, things are floating around, and the TARDIS is likely trying to protect them. And then I said, is that the date of episode 8, May 25th? So we have to look that up. If we were Hank Green, we would actually do that right now while we were talking to you, doing this thing. But no, we're not going to do that. So then I said, I'm not understanding really why they abducted Alan. And I know she said, oh, why don't you go pick up him? And that's, but really, like, what does he have to do? Like, anyways, I guess because he got the paper, he got the.
Well, no, because
somehow
she
there's
said
two.
They explained that
just because she said to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was just kind of weird, but then he got there in advance and he could take over.
The time
I guess
the time thing.
But they don't really address how there are 2 copies of that certificate.
The time thing, because he had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just it's weird. No, there's 2 copies. But anyways, it works for the story. So anyways, what did I say?
Maybe it was because there was a big explosion, right?
Yeah, because that's how. I mean,
so maybe that's what
they needed to solve the problem.
No.
Because if the 2 things are not allowed to touch each other, and the Doctor says that if you've got 2 identical things, it causes an explosion.
Maybe because they both originated on Earth, so maybe because that happened, maybe it just traveled, I don't know, through space, and
I don't know.
Maybe that's why Earth is all blown up. Maybe.
Oh, I see. That's what you're saying.
Because there was a big explosion and stuff,
and that's why Earth is blown up.
Yeah. Or maybe like Alan, maybe it reverted back because Belinda's fine because the Doctor pulled her out, but Alan wasn't. So, but maybe that's what it was.
I did not think of that. Good. So maybe that's what happened to Earth.
Yeah.
that nonsense, and maybe Mrs. Floyd is trying to help him by fixing that.
Maybe.
I don't know, but right now I don't get that vibe.
Okay.
So the last thing I said here was it was fun to watch, but I felt there's too many loose ends. And,
that's why.
And how did the robot get the extra certificate? How did the robot initially know about the certificate?
Because Alan had it.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that.
I think Alan.
Light years away, something. Also recognize. Oh, yeah, I recognize. Yeah, because that's what I do. You listen to music.
What?
I recognize things. I recognize Belinda's house as being the same house as in the 60th anniversary special.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry,
they
that's
must
distracting
be-
for me.
No. The reason why is because she lives next to Mrs. Flood. Mrs. Flood was one of the neighbors. So
No, Ruby Sunday lives next door to Mrs. Flood.
No, she doesn't. Ruby lives with her mom and her grandma, in a different house, in a different part of town. But
No, there's Mrs.
No,
Flood was there.
Mrs.
Remember? Yeah, see?
wait, shoot,
Because the
doesn't make
TARDIS
sense.
was outside.
No, but
and we, no,
anyways, you're right.
I don't think. I
think
don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's just
no,
that
but
they're reusing the set.
I think that
And
Belinda is one of the neighbors. I think she also lives in the same.
I have no clue.
place.
But
Because
anyways,
we can see the outside, and the outside looks the same.
yeah,
so
but I think they're
she
just
also-
reusing the same sets.
Well, yeah,
I
they
literally
are.
think that's
They
what
are.
they're doing.
They
But
are,
for me, that's distracting because I'm that type of
I
person.
just wrote it off as they live. She lives.
Yeah,
in the same
no, I was just like, same set.
Yeah, it is. Okay. If they make these sets.
No, I
They
get it.
make
I
the
get it. I
sets.
totally get it. I mean, that like everything else is so big budget, but that's the
Yeah.
same set.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that again. Episode 4.
I don't think. Okay. Yeah.
You know, so I recognize stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I can't help myself because I'm a film person, and I'm that type. I'm that person that sees problems with continuity and all
Well,
these
it's not
kinds
really
of
a
things.
continuity problem, per se.
This wasn't a continuity
No.
problem, but I like with
Yeah.
you hear music themes. I don't, but I see things like that. Yeah, I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, it's the same house as they used in the 60th anniversary special when the Doctor was making the moving panels. That same set.
Yeah.
Anyhow, okay, all right. So that's me for the robot revolution.
Yep.
So do you want me to go first with Lux?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So Lux, episode 2. I actually love this episode for a lot of reasons. Yeah. So let me just get into that. So this one, I actually started off with absolutely did not disappoint. And the reason I said that is because we looked at these episodes late, and I was very, very carefully not trying to see any reviews on anything because, actually this one was at school, so we're waiting for them to come home from school. But I did see that there was a lot of buzz about Lux and people liked it. So I was thinking, usually when I see that, then I'm disappointed when I watch it. But I was not. I really liked it. So more of the Gods of the Pantheon story. So it made sense. This one, unlike the first episode, as in the Robot Revolution, I didn't feel like there was any loose ends. I feel like they tied everything up nicely. Mrs. Flood again, at the end she's everywhere now. It's just like we were saying with the last season.
Because we know she can travel through space and she can also travel through time.
Yeah, whatever she's
But she doesn't
doing.
have a TARDIS and she's not a Time Lord.
So
what the heck?
So what I'm saying. So this is what it is. I loved that costume switch thing. Like it's just like, I love stuff like that. Give me more of that.
They did.
So, and I love the idea of the virtual fans that actually became real at the end.
Yeah,
So I
nice,
love the virtual fans that gave life to the trapped Doctor from the film, and trying to help them. And then I have something else here that I don't quite understand from the film of the 15 plus Doctor and Belinda. I don't know. Anyways, because they were trying to give him hints, and I don't know. I can't remember what I was trying to say there, but I really liked that set of people because it sort of, in some ways, people would think if you do something like that in the story, you're sort of breaking the flow. But
it works.
But it worked. Yeah. I don't know how it worked. It just worked. And
because the next logical step, because they were. First they were in 2D, then they became 3D, and then then the next thing was they thought they escaped, but they didn't. They actually didn't. So then the next thing would be for them to break out into the real world, and then they actually escape. Because
for them to give them a hint and sacrifice themselves in a way, and then at the end get them getting back their existence, which I thought was great. And that I really like that concept of the lost love, and you know, with what was his name, Mr. Pie, and his wife Helen.
Nice, yeah.
I just, because you could understand why someone would be hesitant to want to give that up, especially if they were so much in love as they apparently were. And, you know, and then at the end, you know, just look for me. And he didn't come out of the fire, right?
No.
He didn't.
Yeah. So yet again, same theme.
So he did stay in the cinema, right? So he did, right? And then even so, and again, true to form with Russell T Davies, he always has to add in something. So and I was, even when I saw them in Florida and they're not white and they're in that diner, I was thinking this would not be a thing. But of course it was addressed, segregation, and they brought it out, and they just said, because that's the thing that's going to happen with a doctor who's not white. That's going to happen. So if you're going to go through time,
if you're on Earth,
and I think they're doing that well, because that is a thing. So, and I kind of like the way he does that. I also liked the confession of the doctor, because the doctor usually does not say what he's trying. Even from 14 to 15, there's still that holdover of not wanting to be completely forthcoming, but he had to be forthcoming with Belinda in order for them to become three-dimensional, right? So they were both together. So I really enjoyed everything with this. And then I said again, comes back to the doctor not wanting to share his fears, but Belinda calls him out on it, which I think is good. And I think that's in terms of the character arc of the doctor, that this is a continuous, because it's not going to just end with 14, right? So he's going to still 15. Have this. Because that's when that really came out, right? You know, so and then, you know, 15 is still a bit like that, but is acknowledging the fact that that's a problem, right? So I think that's good. And then the only thing I said is it's going to be hard to top this one, because I like how everything tied up at the end, and I didn't feel like what's going on, right? So, but yeah,
that's true.
All right, your turn, Lux.
Okay. So I know, and we were actually talking about this a little earlier. It was interesting that, like, even in the trailer, I think we literally mentioned.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Because with this episode, we were like, we're going to
pop out. We did a podcast on the trailers.
Yeah.
For Andor and this.
Yeah, Andor will be coming soon.
Andor will be coming soon. So in that trailer, we were both saying that
Lux, or the Mr. whatever.
Yeah, Mr. whatever.
I don't know. Mr. Ringading?
Mr. Ringading. Was that something or other. Yeah, that he reminded us of the toy maker.
And we were like completely spot on. Like that was crazy how we even got that from that. It was...
and that's the other thing I didn't say. I loved how they did the thing how he materialized, with the moon bouncing off of everything, the light, and then shining on it. Yeah, I thought that was.
I thought it was funny that, like, they did give him, like, because it was kind of hinged on earlier on that the weakness was, like, tied to the film, because, like, he had to, like, do the dance thing when that came on. Yeah. So it was interesting that was already hinting, but it wasn't, like, hugely obvious. Anyway, and then
it was a good story.
Yeah,
it was well done.
It was. Yeah, and I also thought it was an interesting, like, take on, like, segregation, because, like, of course you would think, like, someone who's not, like, from the States, like, and would not even, like, consider that. Like, they would not think of that, like, when they're in, like, Florida. And, like, Belinda, like, she didn't even consider that at the diner and the movie theater until, like, the doctor mentioned it, and then she was, like, completely like, what, are you crazy? Why would you do that? So yeah, it's interesting, but it was good. I think it was a good way to handle that. And I also like the bit with the fans and the moving frames of the film. I thought it was good that they came back, because I was like, oh no, they sacrificed themselves. Yeah,
it depends on how much you love your show. Would you give your life up for your show?
And so then I felt that both Lux from this season and the Maestro from last season, even the Toymaker to extent, like, they are just, like, really ridiculous characters. Like, they act, like, so ridiculously. Like, I feel like they just, because they act, like, in such, like, very like
but they're all part of that
I know
Pantheon thing. They're all like that. That's
like,
the one thing that makes them all the same. They're all
and
over
I guess
the top
it makes sense because they
samey.
all are like kind of like chaos type gods. But honestly, I think the most scared like out of like the whole group of them, I was most scared for the Doctor with like the Toymaker and with Sutek, because Sutek is also grouped in with them.
But the Toymaker was
yeah.
That was perfection.
Yeah, but I think like to me I just felt like the Maestro and Lux, like, I mean, yes, because they were like right in the middle of the season, I felt they were a little bit too silly to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. And as soon as you hear that laugh, I think we both.
Oh yeah. And I was gonna mention that. Yeah. I wrote it, or maybe I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't write it down, but I meant to write it down. But yeah, we both had like very like visceral reaction.
I think Dad is like, every time he sits down with us to watch Doctor Who, he's like, what the hell's going on?
We literally as soon as we heard that, we were like, oh my god.
And Dad's like, what the hell?
We both have the exact same reaction. Yeah, but that was funny. But and then I did feel like the ending was a little bit like it worked, but it was also a little bit anticlimactic in a sense.
Yeah,
like,
but it tied it up. Like, it was nice and neat at the end.
Expanded
it was a story. I mean, the only thing that's pushing you through is Mrs. Flood, right?
Yeah.
So
like it was a fine ending. I can't think of any better way to end it, but I did feel like it was a little bit anticlimactic. But
yeah, it was a little like I just it was
nice.
You could just turn it off and go to sleep afterwards.
It wasn't weird. Yeah, not like the next one. I'm gonna be really angry about that one. But.
Yeah, well, the next two both are Anyways.
Okay, yeah. So
you want to start with the next one? So we're doing our tradition here.
Yeah.
Okay, so episode 3 is The Well.
Yeah. So, the first thing I wrote down, I did not like that ending. I did not like it because I thought it was gonna be all fine.
So that's the thing, and again, it's not. It doesn't explain how is it that whatever it is managed to get out.
Yeah, and then once again,
it doesn't make any sense.
Once again, good person was sacrificed, and this time it was sacrificed for no reason. Yeah. And it didn't make sense because Belinda did like die, quote unquote. She like, her heart stopped, right? That's why they had to.
And then what's her name? Who sacrificed herself? I wrote it down. I'm so bad with names. Shia. Yeah. So she knew that the thing was on her. You could hear it. She could hear it.
She could hear it, and then Shia killed her, so that it would go to Shia. Those are the rules. But it didn't. I don't understand why.
It escaped Shia.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, but anyway.
Well, that makes you wonder, how did it get out of the well in the first place?
Well, it did didn't. We didn't see the original episode. We didn't.
Oh
see
no, I read it. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, I'm going to talk about that, but I was curious.
Yeah, I didn't. So
I thought it got out of the well.
But okay. Yeah, but either way, like that it broke
got out of the well again.
It broke the rules. You're not supposed to do that. But yeah, so that.
But somehow it did get out of the well, and they don't address that. Yeah, so it got out of the well again.
Yeah, that made me angry. And I cannot read that. It's something that was really cool with the. Oh yeah, I just thought the futuristic tech, like with this, and then with like several of the episodes from the last season, especially the one that I really hated with the ambulance. I hated that one, but the tech is very similar, so I'm kind of wondering if Villengard is going to come back.
Well, I mean, if you listen to that at the end of that episode or during that last season, they talk about Villengard being like the supplier for the whole,
for that,
for the
so
whole,
I'm pretty sure,
so they're around.
Yeah.
Even though they might not exist anymore because of what happened in that. But anyways, their tech is around.
The tech definitely looks very similar. I was thinking like in the next week on Doctor Who type thing, I was thinking it would be like a vibe like very similar to that, so I was a little bit scared going into this episode because I really did not want another thing, because I really did not like that episode, but thankfully it wasn't. But yeah, I just noted that like the general aesthetic of the tech and stuff, it looked very interesting. And yeah, and that's what I was gonna mention. I really liked the translator button things, or not.
Yeah, that was a great
subtitle
idea.
Subtitle button things. Like, we should have that in real life. That should be a thing that exists.
I mean, that would be cool.
That'd
because
be great,
then everybody would be able to understand everybody.
Unless
you can't see.
That's true. Right. I'm sure there must be a Braille equivalent or something like that.
You're not going to read something.
Or audio. There's text. There's text and speech.
It should be like. Translation.
Yeah. Anyway, and it was nice that like the there was like that exchange, like don't all nurses know how to sign. Yeah, sign. I was just like, yeah, all nurses should know how to sign. She's like, yeah, Belinda's like, yeah, I completely agree. that was nice.
Hiding. It's hiding. What kind? Yeah, and, you know, in terms of signing, I mean, I saw this really cool thing on I guess, was it on YouTube, about you know, waiters being able to sign, and a person who couldn't hearing impaired came into the restaurant, and the waiter knew how to sign to them. But nurses learn how to sign.
I can't read my next thing. I can't
okay, so should I go on?
And then wait.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Oh, and then we were like, when we were watching it, we were thinking like what, how we were predicting for this to end, and I was thinking that the only way for it to happen would be if Alice like sacrificed herself, and you were thinking something. You were thinking something different. You were thinking something with the mirrors. So we were both like kind of half. The mirrors. We were both kind of half.
That's
right.
The thing. The mirrors didn't quite fully. I mean, did they destroy the mirrors on their own because they didn't want to see the person behind them?
I don't know.
Because that still wasn't clear to me, like why all the mirrors were broken.
Yeah,
I could see why they were shooting each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can see why half of them are like all.
But the mirrors, I didn't quite understand that.
Kind of, yeah.
So and anyways, so that was the one thing I didn't quite get.
Yeah. So there was.
So if you're listening to this and you know why the mirrors were all broken, please comment.
Yeah, because like
let us know what you think.
Maybe it was something tied in from. Was it something?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
No. Unless the wiki's not right. I'll get into that. You're talking about like the original episode.
Yeah.
Midnight, yeah. No.
Okay. Well.
Okay. So my turn.
Yeah.
On the well.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So despite Lux, this out of the four might be my favorite episode. The well.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought Lux was going to do it, but I think as well. I think it's the well, despite the way it ended. I mean, and then we'll talk about Lucky Day. And there's certain things about Lucky Day that anyways, we'll talk about it. I thought this was a great story, and the monster you can't really see is because again, and I think I talked about this in the context of something else. I think it was probably Doctor Who. When you can't see it, what you're imagining is something even worse than what it actually. You know what I mean? Like your imagination fills in. You know. Anyways, and I can't remember which podcast that was, but anyways,
I'm sure it must have been.
I loved the opening. Again, going back to what you were saying about, you know, when they're looking up and you know, the doctor says, look up, you know, like, look at this, like, you know, so he, you know, and seeing that beautiful skyscape, I guess you could call it. Yeah, and then I said here, still a little confused about why we had the broken mirrors. So I'm not sure what the diamond aspect of that was. At first I thought it was a connection to the mirrors.
Yeah.
But no. So I don't really quite. I'm still not quite getting that. So then I thought, well, I guess in a way this is a nostalgia episode because it's referring back to Midnight. So and they always like to do at least one episode where they harken back to something in previous Doctor Who, which we didn't see. So if that's the case, that's great. You know, except for the fact that I just somehow it managed to still escape and it broke the rule. And so that brings me back to this idea of how did it get out of the well in the first place? Yeah. So you know, this was something that I found really frustrating. Yeah. So, and then I was thinking, well, does it have to do with it being made of diamond or whatever it is? And then at one point when the doctor was talking to Alice, he was saying, I'm talking to the being that's behind Alice. Yeah. And then I know he said something to the being that's behind the being behind Alice. So like there's like two things behind her. Yeah. Right? You caught that, right? So maybe that was really weird, but maybe the other one was like, maybe the thing that's actually doing the killing was the one on the back of the back. Maybe. And the one that was on the back is the one that went down with Shia. Her name was Shia, right? Shia. Maybe. And then the other one still was able to get out. Yeah. And that's the one that was doing the killing. So maybe. So that may be what the case was, and that's why I'm a little confused because and I thought maybe I heard him wrong.
No, because we had the subtitles on.
Yeah, we had the subtitles on. He said the being behind the being that's behind
Alice. Yeah.
Alice. Yeah. Right. So there was two things behind her. Mm-hmm. And maybe that whispering was them talking to each other. Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. So, but again, it left those loose ends, and that kind of bothered me. And the explanation as to why it came out.
So what was the original
Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
So other than this, I did enjoy it. Mrs. Flood again, everywhere. But then I decided to look up the episode on Midnight, and it's not like, again, with the thing that's similar to Midnight, and that was with the 10th Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw that.
And there was also a monster you couldn't see, and it had everybody. They were sort of on a train. They were on that planet, right? They were definitely on that planet, and there was sort of at that time some sort of like resort there.
Because it was made of diamonds, that makes sense. Yeah.
Whatever, there was a spa and all this stuff, but the Doctor decided to go out on a tour, and they're in this protected train kind of thing, or whatever it was on this tour, to look at the landscape. But they had to stay in that because of the extreme radiation that was associated with that planet. And somehow this creature got onto the thing. So at first it was in the walls, like they're talking about the knocking on the walls of the train or the vehicle, and then this one passenger being sort of possessed. I can't remember if it was a passenger or crew. I can't remember now. But then it going into the Doctor, and then the Doctor was... Anyways, again, it was this exchange where they knew there was something possessing them, and they couldn't see who it was, and they were trying to get rid of the person that they think... So they were.
Was it still the same? Like,
no, it wasn't. It wasn't about that being right behind them. Like, at least not in the wiki thing that I saw. Right. So, I mean, I'd have to go back and watch the episode, but it didn't say that the person was at 12 o'clock midnight behind them. So I don't know why it was called midnight. I don't know. I don't know.
Sense.
So that
this one it makes sense.
Yeah, this one it makes sense. So maybe there was something in there. It just wasn't in the Wikipedia description of it. But it was similar in the fact that they were targeting each other,
and they couldn't see it.
Right? Okay. And it was sort of, and in that case, the person would talk weirdly, so like they were sort of possessed, right? And if you think, even like if the 10th Doctor, I mean, CGI was okay, but it wasn't like it is.
So that makes more sense.
And here you could, they did flash something, so you could see something bizarre,
but it was way too fast. It was
so fast, way too subtle. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to freeze frame it to try and see it. And if anybody has done that, I'm sure people are doing that. Yeah. What that is, I don't know, but you do see something in your peripheral vision somehow when you're watching this, which is bizarre. That was a bizarre effect. I don't know how they did that. So I don't quite get it. But it was a nostalgia episode, so and I like to harken back to these monsters. But that was sort of what I got out of it, and it, at least in the wiki, they didn't say that it had to be 12 o'clock midnight. It didn't.
I feel like it probably just didn't say.
I don't know. Maybe it just didn't say. But it was definitely because they knew they were being possessed, not because they saw something behind them, but because they were talking weirdly. Yeah. So in this episode, the person was talking just fine. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure. Anyways, so that was my take on the third episode.
Yeah. The well.
Right. The well. Yes. The name just popped out.
Yeah.
The well.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. No, you do the well.
No, you're. Oh wait. No. Yeah. No. It's you. Lucky Day.
You already did. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm doing Lucky Day.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I forgot that you already did it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Lucky Day, episode 4. Yeah. There's lots of. To me, this was a big emotional thing, and for me, this is the episode that I hated, and it's not because I didn't like the episode, but I hated it because I could totally relate to the monster. The monster is real. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that really got me, because this is like a real monster. Yeah. And they're around all over the place. Yeah. And I think I was so frustrated by the whole thing. So here again, this is a Doctor Light episode.
There's no Doctor at all.
This was Dr. Light.
No Doctor at all.
So here we have very minimal Doctor.
I thought he'd just pop in at the end, but no. Oh no, he did. He did. Yeah.
I loved seeing Ruby, Cherry, and Carla. I love those characters, and Ruby's mom, Louise Miller. Yeah. And I had early on I had guessed that Conrad did not take that anecdote. He's not going to take the anecdote. Oh, I knew right away he didn't take it. Yeah. And the only reason he was protected is because they had the screech in unit. Yeah. That's the only reason he was protected. Yeah. But this was a very, very Russelltdavies episode, and despite the fact that I didn't think there was any loose ends. There's no loose ends. We know exactly where this is going. We know Conrad is coming back. So I but it was very Russell T Davies in that he will address
like real life
real life things. He does that all the time, and he gets a lot of
Did that in
flack
the
for
first-
it.
the first
He
one,
gets
yeah.
a lot of flack for it, and it's like, you know what, deal with it. That because sometimes the monsters we know are scarier than the monsters we can't see, and that's sort of how I feel about this one. So other than Mrs. Flood, who again I really feel at the end of this episode
now,
is definitely malevolent. I think
I don't know if she's malevolent.
She's letting that
I'm
guy
still not
out.
sure. I'm still not
She's
sure.
letting that guy out.
I
Okay,
don't know.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
But she
I don't
actually
know.
lets that guy out.
Because it just feels like it feels like she's like flipping. It almost feels like she's flipping. Like every
I think
episode.
she's being a complimentary enemy. Is
I
what
don't- I don't know.
She has
Okay.
respect for
Maybe,
him,
maybe.
but she's playing with him because she knows she's more powerful.
I don't
Look,
know.
you said it yourself.
She didn't do anything last season.
She can move it.
We
Yeah,
saw her,
because
like,
she was
once.
watching. She's like moving around. Like you don't know what she did. So
guess.
she's like moving around freely in space and time without a TARDIS. Okay. Now but I really hate Conrad even more than the usual monsters because people like him actually exist and they are just as dangerous. Again, I recognize the bar.
I don't know.
I recognize
I don't
the
think
bar
it was
from
the same
21
one.
yards. It's the same bar.
Is it 20? Is it 21?
21
19
yards?
point. I don't know. Yeah, the one with the yard.
I recognize the bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Anyways,
don't think it was the same.
and then I really feel for Ruby and how difficult it is for her to be normal. And
she must have PTSD after all that.
sure,
Like, of course. Yeah.
and I mean that's sort of all the companions probably have difficulty integrating into society. But I mean, in a way, she has it a little bit easier because UNIT exists,
Yeah, that's true.
right? So people are aware of aliens.
Well, no unit is aware of.
Well, but people know UNIT is there.
Yeah,
That's why there was that whole thing on the social media, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that whole thing, and I did not see that coming. I didn't see that coming with the boyfriend in this case.
I was. Totally
I did
thinking.
not see that coming.
I was thinking.
And then him turning around and being a whole social media thing. I did.
I
not
didn't see that part coming. I was thinking he was going to be evil.
I didn't think he was going to be evil.
I was hoping not.
I knew he didn't take the anecdote, and I thought he was just being a dummy. But I did not see him as coming at because again, this is and I don't know if it's all Doctor Who episodes, but Russell T Davies does this a lot. The obvious monster is the Screech, but that's not really the monster of this episode. It's Conrad. Yeah. So you're almost rooting for the monster to bite his head off.
Yeah.
Right. And then I said, interesting effect with the doctor at the end. I don't know if they've done that before, where you can just sort of snap his fingers and just appear and do things like that. I don't know if they've done that before, but that was an interesting effect. And then him not knowing if that was really real when he came back, but he's definitely in prison. And then Mrs. Flood letting him out. Also interesting choice for Kate to release the Shriek. I thought that was an interesting.
I thought that made sense. That made sense.
But she always seems like the person. Like, I mean, and that's the thing. Was it the right thing or not the right thing? Well, and you're kind of like wondering, like, because the thing is, and as you see with the doctor, and when you're dealing with people like that or a monster like that, the more you point out how much they're wrong, the more they'll stick to whatever it is that they're clinging to. So, like, I mean, he literally just got bit by the Screech, and he said,
I thought she was gonna
your
let him...
special effects are so much better now. I'm like, really? Like, really? Honestly, I mean,
I thought she was gonna let him. I thought she was gonna let it like eat him, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah.
But then that could have backfired as well.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I didn't know if that was because she kind of took his bait about him talking about her dad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of thing why I thought it was like an interesting choice because she should be like, I think she's better than that. She doesn't take the bait.
Well, no, but that did something similar did happen, I think, in an earlier episode, because they've mentioned him before, and she's gotten a little bit like.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't know the whole history.
I
don't know the whole history, but I just feel like, she took the bait, and I wasn't comfortable with that. But but at the end,
but I mean,
I wanted that thing to just eat him up, and then we don't have to deal with him anymore.
Yeah.
So but that was sort of my feeling on that. Yeah. But anyhow, okay, so that was my take on Lucky Day. I think, like, even though it was so, like, that episode was the one that upset me so much that I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
So that's what I mean why I didn't like it. But
That
I
was-
did
that
like
was
I
your-
did
that
I
was your
did like it.
ambulance episode.
Yeah, that's my ambulance episode. Just because I find these kinds of things so frustrating and because it's like a psychological thing,
Yeah.
and I don't like stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I do.
Yeah. I mean,
I do.
great story. Good job, Russell T. Man, like that was awesome. But man, if that was your intention for us to be frustrated, yeah. You succeeded. Anyways, all right.
Okay, well,
What did you think of it?
well, the whole time we were watching this, I was just like, please just let Ruby be happy. Please let her just be happy.
Yeah.
No.
No.
So, yeah, I was really hoping it would work out, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to, because that just seemed really too convenient. Like, it seemed way too convenient. Like, the whole setup with him, it seemed way too convenient. So I was suspecting.
Yeah, and I really liked how they did that thing with at the very beginning
Yeah,
with,
like him as
with
a kid,
Ruby
yeah.
and him as well. Yeah, there was him as a kid.
Yeah.
But also how
Yeah.
he was watching them. You know, just happened to be
Yeah,
there.
I thought that was a little bit weird. That was like, that was a little bit like, that seemed a little bit suspicious to me. But
yeah, but you would think that would be enough for him to know that it was real because he actually saw it.
yeah.
Anyways,
I don't know.
again, makes no sense.
Yeah. Anyway,
Psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, so then I was saying a lot of like the concepts and themes are like a bit similar to the first episode with Ellen.
Yeah.
But in terms of themes, and then so then I was also trying to figure out what is Mrs. Flood doing, what is she, how is she, what is going on with that, what is going on with that, why is she everywhere, who is she, so I guess we'll see.
Or not. I don't know. Maybe they're coming back in season 3. I don't know.
But
or series 16.
No, I think we're gonna see something with her because they're really playing it up with her a lot more this season.
Yeah, she always breaks the fourth wall though.
Yeah.
Always doing that.
Actually,
she didn't break it in this one.
No.
Yeah, she didn't do it in
I don't
this
think she
episode.
did it in any one of them except for the first one. She didn't directly like break the fourth wall.
Break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
She just had knowledge she shouldn't have.
Yeah, no, but she did.
And
She did break it once.
is in places she shouldn't be. Yes. So yeah. So now. So I was actually thinking that this episode, because like we see from the beginning, like there's no doctor except until the end. I was thinking this is going to be the episode that we figure out what happened on May 24th. Like that makes it unreachable. Makes Earth unreachable.
Oh, did you?
That's what I was thinking, but
no,
it just ended up not doing that.
No, we're not going to
'Cause
find
I was-
out to like the last
No,
second
yeah,
of the season.
I
That's
don't
what
know,
I
but
think. We're not going to
that's
know.
what I was thinking this is going to lead up to that, but
But the doctor's going to do one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
His eyes are going to go wide. He's like, oh, and then he's going to do a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff, and we're not going to know what he's doing.
Yeah. But I was wrong about that. But yeah, though I do feel like somehow Conrad must be responsible for that, because like we clearly see like he's definitely gonna be up to something. And
No,
this
I
is-
don't know. I thought your idea at the beginning with the explosion going backwards.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good one. I
Maybe.
didn't think that
Yeah,
was
'cause,
good.
like, I guess because I wrote that down, and then I also wrote this down, so I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know why.
I don't know. I didn't think of that, but that's actually
But-
because it would be the timing would be right.
The timing would be right. Yeah, I don't know, but I just feel like
Yeah.
something must happen with Conrad later.
Oh, something is.
Yeah, I don't know what. But,
Something is.
But yeah, and then
If not
yeah.
this season, maybe next season. He's coming back.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, but I was thinking that this would be the connection between like the and then this episode like shows like the connection with like Belinda and the doctor, right? Because now he learned Belinda's name from Conrad.
Oh yeah, because he heard.
earlier,
Yeah, because
earlier he
Conrad
was, like,
told him about her.
yeah, because we're establishing this is between when Ruby leaves and before he finds Belinda. So now I guess that's how he knew to look for her, because
Yeah, I don't know.
he was looking for her, right?
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right?
Don't know.
We saw in the first. Yeah, he
Yeah,
went.
I mean he
went
was,
to
but
the-
I don't know if he.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't explain why he's looking for her.
Yeah,
So.
but there's that. But yeah, I was thinking this would be the connection between the May
Between
24th
those two.
thing and
Yeah, no, I didn't expect
No.
that, but I do. But you gave me something to think about there
Oh,
with that
okay.
with that whole concept of like what could be happening there with the explosion, because obviously something massive happened on
Yeah,
Earth, right?
I don't think that's
you
what
saw,
it is.
You
but
saw in the first episode that
Yeah.
the pieces of the Statue of
No,
Liberty
to
are
me-
flying around.
Okay,
It's
when
like,
I watched that,
something's
when I
bad.
saw that scene, to me it looked. I don't know if it's. It looked like there was a big like round gate. Like, did you see
It
that?
did?
Yeah, to
No.
me it looks like almost like a Stargate type thing. It looked like a big like round metal structure.
I
to
thought
me.
that was a piece
I
of
thought it
the
was
Statue
floating.
of Liberty.
There- no,
I
there
don't
was
know.
that.
I have to look
I
at
don't
it
know.
again.
To me, it
I
looks
was
like
just,
there's like a
looking
big
at-
like metal scaffolding structure thing. I wasn't sure
There
if
was
that was
lots
like,
of stuff, so
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. So
But-
it's like, you know, but we clearly have the other 4 episodes to watch.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll get some sort of resolution to
Yeah.
that, which, because right now we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the next podcast, we're going to talk about the next podcast.
Yeah.
The next podcast is going to be on Andor.
Yeah. For 6 episodes.
For
of
6
that. Yeah,
episodes.
first half of the
So, which guiltily we have not started yet. Because we want to watch it together, and this one
Yeah.
was at school.
Yeah.
So
It's been very hard
I
for
have
me.
been very patiently waiting and seeing people I know online
They're
talking
almost
about
done.
how
Like it finishes like.
yeah. So it's going to be late,
Yeah.
but we will talk about it. You know, yes. So we will start with our next podcast, and then we will also still finish Doctor Who.
Yep.
And we are also fans of Sandman,
Yes,
and
so
that is
let
coming
me-
out. So this is like a
yeah.
busy time. So, but
There might be a few more things.
there might be,
maybe.
yeah, and like we got hold of a new comic book that we both want to look at and sort of promote this new comic book writer from Canada. So we want to make sure that we actually both read it, and I haven't had time to do that. So we'll talk a bit about that. We're also going on a trip, so we might mention that. I'm going to go someplace. We'll see. But right now what we're doing is typically putting out one podcast every second Tuesday of the month. But if we
might speed it up a little
we
bit. right
might
now.
put a couple extra out over the summer
Yeah,
because
we're
this
working
one's
on a lot
home.
of things.
So we'll see. But that's sort of what's happening. And if you have been, and we have some people that have been listening to the podcast. So we used to put one out every second week. But this one, when this is at school, it's a little hard to do that.
hard,
So, we started doing.
But if you have suggestions,
If you
on
have suggestions of
something,
things that
yes.
you recommend to us, but right now the agenda is Andor, Sandman, and other little things
Other
that pop
things.
up.
Finishing this up,
But this summer is going to be pretty busy with those things. We know that the other Lord of the Rings is coming out, but you'll be back at school for that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We may or may not.
We may or may not do
Potentially,
that, but they would show up later. So that's where we're at. So we're hoping that you enjoyed this discussion on Doctor Who, and stay tuned for more Star Wars. Get back into that and Sandman. All right. Thank you for listening, and as usual, for being part of the Birds on Power Lines podcast.